In lesson 6.2, let's talk about negative exponents. We use symbols a lot in math to make it easier and quicker to write things down. For example, instead of writing plus, we have a symbol, right? Instead of saying take this away from that, we use the minus sign for that. The negative on an exponent is just a math symbol that indicates that we want to take the reciprocal of the base that it's attached to. So let's talk about reciprocal and remember what that is. A reciprocal means that if I have a number, say like 2/3, then I'm going to flip that fraction and I'm going to write it as 3/2. Clearly, these two things are not equal to each other. They're reciprocals of each other. The special characteristic of reciprocals is that if I multiply them together, 2/3 times 3/2, then I multiply the numerators, 2 times 3 is 6. I multiply the denominators, 3 times 2 is 6, and so I get the same number on top and bottom, and that's equal to 1. That always happens when you multiply reciprocals together. So another example of reciprocals should be like 1/4. The reciprocal of 1/4 would just be 4/1, which we wouldn't leave that way. We would just write it as 4. You don't have to start with a fraction to take a reciprocal. So if I start with a number, it doesn't have to be a small number. Let's look at 151. If I want to write the reciprocal of 151, then I need to remember I can write any number over 1 and it doesn't change the value of it. So to write the reciprocal of a number that's not a fraction is I write it over 1 to make it look like a fraction and then just flip that. So 1/151. So when I have an expression like 2 to the negative 1 power, I recognize this negative on the power as that symbol for taking the reciprocal of the base. My base is 2. I can think of that as 2/1. So I want to take the reciprocal of that base and call it 1/2. If my base is 1/2 and the power is -1, indicating the reciprocal of that base, the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. If I have an improper fraction like 4/3, the symbol means the same thing. A negative on that exponent says take the reciprocal of that base, which would be 3/4. You can have a base that's not just a plain number. You can have an expression like 2 to the 2nd power, like we have here, or you could even have an expression that has a variable in it. The negative on the exponent still indicates that you're taking the reciprocal of the base. So I'm going to rewrite this 2 to the 2nd power as 2 to the 2nd power over 1. So when I take the reciprocal, I have 1/2 to the 2nd power. Now I can simplify that to 1/4. And I could have simplified 2 to the 2nd power to 4 as my first step, and then raise that 4 to the -1 power, which would take me to 1/4 as well. You can have negative exponents other than -1. In this example, I have 4 to the -2. The negative on that power just means take the reciprocal of the base. The power is going to stay with the base and move with it. Okay, so if I have 4 to the -2, then I'm going to move 4 and the power of 2 to the bottom of the fraction, so 1/4 to the 2nd power. The power moves with the base if it's not a power of 1. Now 1/4 squared is the same thing as 1/4 times 4, or 1/16. So if I have 8 to the -3, the negative on the power says take the reciprocal of that, and 1/8 to the 3rd power. If we simplify 8 to the 3rd power, then 8 times 8 is 64, and 64 times 8 is 512. Now we don't always want to simplify that power. If we have something like 3 to the -72 power, doesn't matter how big that exponent gets, if it has a negative in front of it, that negative is saying take the reciprocal of this. So 1/3 to the 72. And I'm not going to simplify that because 3 to the 72nd power is a really big number. When I have 1 to the -1, that's almost like a trick question because it's saying take the reciprocal of this base, which is 1. Well, if I write 1/1 and then I flip that, I still get 1/1. So 1 has itself as its reciprocal, so 1 to the -1 power is still going to be 1. Now we could have a fractional base like 1/10 to the -2. So I want to take the reciprocal of the base, and that's going to take care of the negative on the exponent. So if I take the reciprocal of 1/10, I get 10, and then I'm still going to raise that to the second power. To simplify that, 10 times 10 is 100. Another example, 1/4 to the -4. The negative on the exponent takes the reciprocal of 1/4, which is 4, and then I want to raise that to the 4th power. That simplifies to 256. Pause the video and try the next 2 examples and make sure you get them right. Are these the answers that you got? If you got something different and you can't find your mistake, then go ahead and ask a question now before you go any further. Go ahead and try these next 2 examples and then come back and check your answers. Now don't fall for some of the common mistakes. When you have a negative exponent, it just acts like an elevator button and moves the base and the power to the other part of the fraction, indicating a reciprocal. It does not make the base negative. I hope you're ready for your practice. If you have any questions at all, then make sure that you ask. Your practice is a little bit different for this lesson, so go to Google Classroom and read what that looks like. It's not attached to this packet.